The sky was deep rose and amber when Sireen finally finished her work. She stood at the water's edge with her bare feet pressed into the cold, wet sand. Her arms were at her sides. Her palms were open and still facing the sea. The last of the ritual had left her fingertips a few moments ago. A faint warmth, like sunlight, held briefly in stone. She had felt it pass through her and out into the water the way it always did. The way it had for as long as she could remember. Out on the horizon, something shifted. No one else would have seen the change, but Sireen had stood in this spot through every season of her long life, and she alone knew what to look for. It felt as though the ocean took a breath, a deep, slow inhale that moved through every wave and ripple down into the dark expanse below. It held for a moment, then released, and the water began to reach for the shore, easing up the sand a little further than before. The tide had turned. She watched it for a moment. She always did. She needed to see it start. There was a quiet pride in her chest as the water shifted. Hers alone, shared only with the sea and the darkening sky. Her work was done. Now she could go home. She turned away from the water and walked up the beach toward the cottage. Her feet knew the path, past the long dark line of kelp that marked the old tide's reach. The sand grew firmer and then gave way to pale marram grass that hissed and shivered in the evening wind. It brushed against her ankles as she walked, cool and dry and familiar. The air here smelled of salt and something mineral, like rain on warm stone. She breathed it in deeply, held it for a moment, then let it go. The tiredness moved through her slowly. It settled into her shoulders and her hands and the soles of her feet. The deep, satisfying weight of it. She had done what she came to do, and her body knew it. It was ready to rest. The cottage appeared through the grass, small and low and driftwood grey, It sat with its back to the dunes, as though the sand had grown up around it and, rather than claim it, had chosen to gently hold it there, nestled safe among the hills. The windows were dark. She had left before the light faded and hadn't thought to leave a lamp burning. But that was all right. She knew the shape of this place by feel, by the lean of the doorframe, by the particular give of the iron handle, smooth and cold in her palm, even by the smell of it, salt and old rope and wood smoke, and something beneath all of those things that she had no name for, something that simply meant home. She loved this cottage the way she loved the sea, with the deep, unshakable certainty of someone who has never once wanted to be anywhere else. She pushed the door open and stepped inside. She moved through the dark with quiet familiarity. The hearth was to her left. The shelf above it held the clay bowl with the matches. She struck one and held the flame to the kindling, glad she had thought to lay the fire before she left. She always laid the fire before she left. A kindness to herself. She always came home tired, wanting nothing but warmth to soften the day from her. The flame considered the wood for a moment. Then it caught. She stayed crouched on the hearthstone and watched it grow. The warmth moved over her slowly, reaching her face and her hands and the cold that had settled in her chest. She closed her eyes and breathed it in. The tension she hadn't known she was carrying began to ease. She had lived alone in this cottage for longer than the village at the far end of the coast could remember, and she had never once been lonely here. The sea kept her company. The fire kept her company. The rhythms of this place, the tides, the light, the turning seasons were as familiar to her as her own heartbeat, and she found in them everything she needed. She sat back on her heels and let out a long, slow breath. Then she rose and moved to the window seat. The old wool blanket was folded on the back of it, just where she always left it. Faded to a soft grey green, the colour of sea holly in late summer, she shook it open and wrapped it around her shoulders then settled into the curve of the window seat and looked out at the water. The tide was coming in. She could see it even now in the low light. The white edges of the waves running further up the dark sand than they had been when she left. Moving steadily, each one a little closer than the last. She had set it going, and now it went all on its own. She watched it and felt the last of her alertness soften and release. The work was truly finished. It needed no more tending tonight. She rested her forehead lightly against the cold glass. The sea made its sound, the constant, soft percussion. The long wash of each wave arriving, the collapse of it, the slow retreat through sand and shell, and the quiet hiss of water drawing back over small stones. She had heard it every night of her life, and it had never once stopped comforting her. She let it come through the glass. She let it move through her. And then she felt it settle into her breath, easing and slowing it until it matched the rhythm of the water outside. In with the wave, out with the retreat. Her shoulders softened, her chest opened. Her thoughts grew lighter, drifting where they wanted. She felt herself sink into the quiet of her own mind, soft and still. The fire behind her sent warmth across the room. She could feel it on her back through the blanket. Eventually, Sireen turned from the window and moved to the hearthside chair. Low and wide, with armrests worn smooth by years of evenings exactly like this one. This chair was one of her favorite things in the world. She had sat in it through storms and still nights and every kind of evening in between. It knew the shape of her and she knew the shape of it, and there was an easy comfort in that. She sank into it and felt the weariness in her legs melt away. She pulled the blanket tighter and tucked it in at her sides. The fire was the only light now. It moved across the walls of the cottage in slow amber waves. The ceiling, the shelf of old things, the rope coiled on the hook beside the door, all of it warm and wavering and close. The room felt smaller in firelight, safer. Sireen had always found great solace in small spaces and warm light. She had no desire for grandeur or noise or the company of crowds. She was someone who had always known from a very young age exactly what she needed, and she had, over a long and quietly extraordinary life, arranged things accordingly. This cottage, the fire, this chair, the tide outside and her ancient bond with it. She let her eyes go soft. The flames rose and shifted, gold at the tips, amber in the body, the faintest blue at the edges where the heat ran deepest. Sitting with fire had always settled something deep in her, drawing her back to herself. Her thoughts slowed and widened even further. She watched them come and go without needing to hold any of them. Her hands lay open in her lap, palms up, fingers loose. The hands that had performed the ritual and shaped the pull within the waves. They were finished now. They were resting. Outside, a wave came in, long and full, closer to her now. She heard it clearly, even from the hearth, the soft rush of water arriving, the long, sighing sound of it settling into the sand. Her breath moved out slowly with it. She thought of the color of deep water on a still morning, that particular blue-green that belongs only to the sea, that color that only appears when the light comes through at a certain angle. She loved that color. She had spent a lifetime looking at it, and it still moved her. The thought drifted on, and she let it go. Another came, something quieter still. It moved through her mind and was gone. She was grateful for evenings like this, for the way her mind, after a long day of holding things, eventually just let them fall, for the way her body, given warmth and stillness and enough time, remembered how to truly be at ease. She had learned over many years not to rush this part. The unwinding had its own pace, and she had learned to trust it. Her thoughts now gone, her mind rested in the deep relaxation of her body. Her jaw was loose. Her legs were heavy. Her feet still carrying the faint cool of the sand were warming slowly inside the blanket. She could feel the warmth rising through her, gradual and deep. Outside, the tide kept coming. Wave after wave in the darkness, moving steadily up the shore, filling the spaces the retreating sea had left behind. The water rolling ever on while she sat there, warm and still and utterly content. The fire burned lower. Outside, the wind had dropped to almost nothing. The night had grown very quiet around the cottage. She could hear the faint creak of the old walls settling, the gentle shift and whisper of the fire in the grate. Small, familiar sounds that had always meant the same thing to her, that the night was deepening, that the world was going to sleep, and that she could too. Her eyelids grew heavy. She did not fight them. The blanket held her close. The fire cast its amber light. Outside, the sea came in, wave after wave, drawn up the dark shore by the work of her hands. The fire settled into a low, soft crackle. Her breathing slowed, deepened, grew quieter. The cottage was still around her. The old walls, salt-soaked and steadfast. The smell of wood smoke. The sound of the sea. She loved them all. They held her now, gentle and soothing, easing her deeper into rest, into stillness and peace. Her breath moved in. Her breath moved out. The fire was very low. The tide was very close now. The sound of it soft, softer, softer still. She was somewhere warm and far away, held, safe, at peace, drifting into sleep. As she slept, the tide came in all through the night, softly, steadily, just as she had asked.